All right, so it's Friday, October 8th, and I am running the Heartland 50 miler tomorrow morning. I decided to drive down here because it's about a 2.5 hour drive southwest of Kansas City. So I decided to come down here the night before and just gonna sleep in the car tonight. I went ahead and checked in. They had an early check-in and gonna be going with number 69. They also gave us this nice long sleeve green shirt that says the race on it, and also a Heartland calendar, which is pretty cool. So this race is held twice a year. In the spring it's called the Heartland 50, and I think that's because the max distance for that one is 50 miles. And in the fall it's called the Heartland 100. But there's actually a 125 mile distance too. So the 125 milers are starting tonight at 10 p.m. And then tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. is when the rest of us are starting 100K, 50 miler, 100 milers. And then there's also a marathon option as well that starts, I think, about an hour after that. We are in Cassoday, Kansas. I wanted to be sure how to pronounce that because I think only around 100 people live here, and I was pronouncing it Cassoday, but I asked somebody here and they said it was Cassoday. I'm a little bit concerned about this race. I do 250 milers a year, and I tend to do them in the spring and the fall because I don't do that well in the heat. And the average temperature for this time of year in this town is 68 degrees, but tomorrow it's actually supposed to be in the mid-90s. The record high was 90 degrees, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be broken tomorrow. It's going to be in the mid-90s and sunny, which means heart rate's going to be up, and it's going to be a super challenging race because I just do not do well in the heat. It really increases my heart rate by around 30 BPM. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that because I haven't been heat training or preparing for a race in these types of weather conditions. So I think I'm going to go out actually a little bit faster than I normally would. And that's because the sun's not going to be up when we start, and it's going to be much cooler. And I'm going to try to get in as many miles as I can before the heat hits because I know I'm going to blow up on the back end regardless.
Twist on it!
All right, first check-in. Probably can't see me because it's so dark outside, but a little over 4 miles, and the first unmanned aid station is at about this point. I just passed it. I would have recorded it, but obviously it's too dark. It's just a big jug of water, so I refilled the water bottle. Got that nice sunset coming in. Hanging out with my man Rod over here. We're at about 8.5 miles, something like that.
Something, yeah. Yeah, 8.2.
Just left that first manned aid station. And up until this point, there's been a lot of hills, but they've just been gradual inclines. It hasn't been anything too steep so far, but off here in the distance, there's some pretty gnarly looking steep hills ahead, which the GoPro doesn't usually capture that well because I have it on horizon leveling, so that way it doesn't shake all over the place when I'm running. So usually when I show these hills out in the distance, it looks kind of flat, but trust me, it's not very flat. But yeah, kind of hanging out. The course is all just gravel and dirt road. Very similar to the Flint Hills 50 if you've done that one. So just under 13 miles, and we've got some water here. 15-mile check-in. Been running for about 2.5 hours. Feeling okay. I'm just trying to get in some miles before it starts to heat up. So on pace, I'm gonna try to get in to the turnaround spot by 10:30, which would be 4.5 hours. Coming up on the mile 17 aid station up here. The last 2.5 miles or so have all been this gradual uphill climb. So it'd be nice to stop off here for a minute or two. Hey, thanks. All right, just left the mile 17 aid station. Actually ended up stopping there for about 5 minutes. Ended up eating a banana. They also had some peaches there. So just kind of chowed down and, you know, relaxed for a bit. Also switched into the sleeveless shirt. I was wearing long sleeves earlier because it's actually a little bit cool this morning, but gonna be in the mid-90s here in a little bit. So yeah, I guess the next manned aid station is the turnaround at mile 25. So 8 miles into that point. Mile 20, check in. This section I've been on for the last half mile or so is just straight downhill. Ever since around mile 8 or 9, we've had some pretty steep hills. It was pretty gradual before then, but it's not quite as bad as the Flint Hills 50 when it comes to incline, but there's a lot of up and down out here. So if you're planning on running this race, just be prepared for that. But yeah, it's really starting to warm up now. And so I'm just gonna try to push it for the next 5 to get to the turnaround spot and just kind of take it as it comes on the way back. All right, at mile 21.5, you'll come to a turn where you take a left. And there's water refill here. One thing to watch out for, especially if you're running this thing at night or early in the morning, if you're doing 100 miles, are these cow guards here. Just don't want to accidentally step into one of those and injure yourself. All right, coming up on the turnaround aid station up here. It's actually at around 25.5. I thought it was gonna be around 25. I actually thought it was gonna be a little bit lower because the finish line is about a 1/4 mile past the start. So this race may end up being like 51, 51.5, something like that. Hey, thanks. Where is the turnaround spot?
They're down at the bottom of the hill. Where?
Oh, really?
Well,
All right, heading out of the turnaround spot. I actually ended up just blowing past the aid station. There was just a whole bunch of people out there, and I was trying to find where the person was with the clipboard. And then somebody told me, oh, it's down at the end of this hill. And that was for people continuing on for the 100K and 100-mile distance. So luckily I caught myself. Somebody told me after I'd gone past about 1/10 of a mile, but that could have been a complete and total disaster. So I came in at exactly 10:30 a.m., which is what I was aiming for. It's pretty amazing. I came in like to the minute what I was aiming for, so that's good. But this trip back, it's gonna be brutal. The sun is out and it's getting hot, and I was expecting this because of the weather forecast, the fact that it's gonna be in the mid-90s. So just gotta take it real slow and watch my heart rate so I don't get in trouble. So no time goals for this race. Just gonna try to complete it in one piece. Mile 30. That last water refill station was about a half a mile back. Man, the sun is really starting to bear down, and the heat's really getting to me. So these last 20 are going to be really, really difficult. In an ultra of this distance, unless you're one of these elite runners, you always got to work walking in during the race at different sections. But for me, the next 20 miles, I'm going to be doing a lot of walking. I don't know how much. Obviously, I'm going to try to run it as much as possible. But it's all about heart rate. So you start getting up in the zone 4, which is your threshold zone, and you ain't going to last long. So with this heat increasing my BPMs by like 20 to 30, I'm going to have to really dial it back if I want to be able to complete this thing in a safe manner. Last thing you want to do is get sick or heat exhaustion or something like that. So unfortunately, usually I like to run these as much as possible and really get after it, but it's just too hot. That's why I don't like doing races in the summer. My body just doesn't handle it very well. This is the only shaded part of the course. It's right before the aid station at like 33.5 miles. You also come to it after you hit the 17-mile aid station. And it's only for about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of a mile. So not much. I'm just taking a walk break here. Man, this heat is really doing a number on me. And just over 33 miles. Just really, really, really difficult. So, I don't know. I'm gonna sit down up at this aid station, get some ice, put it on the back of my neck, and try to cool myself down, because I dumped some water on myself earlier and it's like a shock to my system, so I'm definitely overheated. So this is what I was afraid of. So gotta come up with a new game plan on the fly here. Coming up on this mile 34 aid station right here at the intersection. So gotta make a pit stop here and recalibrate. Alright, just left the mile 34 aid station. I was sitting down there for about 10 minutes, as were other runners, which I'll try to capture there. Everyone is just smoked because of the heat. So one of the nice ladies who's volunteering there dumped a whole bucket of ice down my back, and I've got ice in my buff here, and I'll put ice on the buff that I have on the top of my head, trying to cool down. But it's too hot. Like it's got me wondering if it's actually safe for me to continue. It's no longer just a matter of inconvenience. When it's this hot outside and your body temperature is that high, you can get into some real trouble. So I'm just going real slowly, and I don't know if this is the wisest move. You know, you never want to quit these things. You want to keep pushing forward and, you know, make it to the finish line, because that's what you set out and train to do. But you also want to be smart. So just documenting the internal conversation that I'm having right now. This isn't your typical excuse Rolodex conversation that I always have anyways on these, where you try to come up with the reason why you should stop, and then ultimately at the end you push through and power through, because this is just beyond typical aches and pains and fatigue. This is got me a little bit concerned. So I'm just gonna march forward, and we'll check in a little bit.